Good afternoon. My name's Sharon. I'm an alcoholic. And thank you, Rose, for reading that so beautifully. It's amends I just feel are never done. I don't know about you, but I know that Rose is sweet and she would have never said that, Andrew. So we'll talk about that later. And thank you, Rose. And thank you to everyone who I love and know in this room and who have encouraged me along the way in my 48 years of being sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's the guy right there. That guy right there. I love that Clancy's right here because when I was in 2018, so I was sober quite a while, I sat right in a chair very similar to that, right next to my sponsor at the Pacific Group meeting on Wednesday night. And I had my career kind of, after 30 years, seemed to just kind of run out my sleeve. And they thought so, and I thought so. So it was kind of a congenial moving on. And I was very excited about it because I was so tired of doing what I was doing because the last few years before that, I was in defiance. But I didn't know that. And so I was trying to find work and sponsoring people, but I was in this funk, and I would get up and answer the phone, and then I would go back to bed. And then I would get up and answer the phone, and then I would go back to bed. But I wasn't telling anyone about this. I wasn't telling people about, I was worried about finances. Am I going to be able to keep my condo? And so I was a little bit in defiance because that's where I go when Ease got out of my life. And I was sitting with Clancy before the meeting started, as I would do sometimes on Wednesday, and it would seem like we would have a few minutes shoulder to shoulder. And I was telling him about it, and he just sits there with his, kind of thinking, like he's really thinking, but he might be napping, I'm never sure. And I looked over at him, and I was telling him about, I was doing these resumes. I didn't even know how to do a resume anymore, and I'm worried about going into my savings, and I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know how to start. He listened for a little while, about 2 minutes, and that's a long time for Clancy. And he just turned over at me, and just the look in his eye, and the love in his voice, and the truth in his voice, he just looked at me and said, "It's because you're defiant, Sharon." Oh yeah, that's right. That's my go-to, is defiance. Since I was a little girl, my go-to is defiance if I am not in God. My go-to is defiance if I am not in some sort of a spiritual place where I love everybody. That's not so spiritual because I'm learning from everything all the time. I've learned so much this weekend. You're right, Marilyn. You're absolutely right. I've heard things that I've heard before, but I've heard them in different ways. I've experienced some feelings in the heart that it's broken open hearts heal bigger. And many of us have broken open hearts here. I work with a lot of women in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm part of a home group for the whole time I've been sober. If I would have known it was the Pacific group, I would have run. Most active group in the West Coast. I thought I was I was a little girl praying for the mothership when I was 6 because it was Iowa. So when I come to my first meeting, my first speaker, not knowing where I am, thinking I'm at a church, and he said he always waited for the spaceship to land. And that got my attention. That was my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous because y'all look like spaceship people to me, and I was very happy to be sitting with you. So that's where I've been, and that's how I've grown up, and that's how I've been raised with some of the best, and Marilyn talked about them, and we recently had the 60th anniversary of our group, and they had a rolling videos. They had about 3 rolling videos, and it was just so beautiful to see how many people have touched my life that were just in my group. And I come here and I see people from all over the country, all over the world that have touched my life. Some you have, and some maybe I've heard you speak and you have touched my life in a way that has made a difference. So I am here to make a little bit of a difference, good, bad, or indifferent, but I am here to make a difference and hopefully get you hungry, because I know we're all kind of waiting for the banquet. I think we've already had the banquet. And I didn't fill up on the Fritos, so I'm waiting for the good stuff, and That's the way it is in life. I don't want to fill up on the Fritos or the crumbs on the ground. I want to sit at the banquet table with you, shoulder to shoulder. So I'm here to do steps 8 and 9, and we've had a lot, just Danny warmed my heart. I cried with Danny. Paul always gives me some sort of enthusiasm about, how he got here and how we 12-step people, and how it's a miraculous thing. Matthew talks about grace so much of the time, and grace is everywhere, and I so believe it. I so believe that if I'm in the flow, grace will be there. But I have this, kind of a black umbrella sitting in the corner of my foyer, and as I go out of the day sometimes, I'll put it up to the ceiling of the sky, because that says on the top, no grace today, and I'll walk around with it. I'll just make sure no grace hits me today. So I have a miserable day till I put that old umbrella down and try to go in the flow of God, because we have been saved to save. We've been saved to save. And I don't know any other way to say it. But somebody's going to hear something from you that will only come from you. It's like that guy hooked me at my first meeting, waiting for the spaceship. Oh, that's where I am, spaceship people. And I lifted my head off my chest. And granted, first 3 months here I couldn't talk, so I had to learn to listen. I had a wired-up jaw, I had a broken neck, I had many things that happened to me as they tossed me out of the car in Palm Springs on July 27th, 1975, and left me with a concussion, scantily clothed in a ditch. And that was my awakening. That's how I drank. Those are the people that I was with. That was my best friend leaving me in a car as they drove away with me. That was how I drank. I was in a blackout, and when I came to, 2 times. The first time I quit fighting for my life. I was done. I quit fighting for my life. And the second time I came to, I was in the ditch, and I wanted to get out. I didn't know where I was. And I lifted my head off the sand because I heard a voice that said, "Get up, I want to live." And I heard it. Deep down in every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God. God said, "Get up, girl, there's things for you to do here." And I believe with my full heart that if for the rest of my life, I wake up and I have that full heart of gratitude for the life that I still have, and I can answer the phone, I can show up, I can have an intuitive thought, I can go out into the world, I can bring kindness and a smile to somebody. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be a God's kids amongst God's kids. And I know Chuck talked about that a lot. He talked about that's what we are, as we get down to the peeling of the onion to just God's kid. And if I don't clean up the wreckage, if I don't walk down the sunny side of the street with my head up and the light on my face and the joy in my heart of this amazing program that, it's true. We got young. We didn't get Freud. I mean, it could have been very, very different. And just that, you talked about the lightning striking. Somebody talked about that. That it's like, how do we get sober? Before one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic, before the connection that I was looking for since a little girl in Iowa, that I found in Canadian Club and Schlitz Beer, and won the Chug-a-Lug contest and drove people home when I was 12. I just, from 12 to 14, I've got as much as I could, and from 14 on, I was a daily drinker in high school. I was a daily drinker as I tried to go to college. I started breaking my father's heart early on because he kept saying, "What's wrong with you?" He's like, "I don't know." I got tired of saying, "I don't know." I've got 3 other siblings that are just doing what they're supposed to do. So I told my dad one day what was wrong with me, and I broke his heart. He saw me in situations that, that there was drugs there, that there were things that were happening around me. And he stood at the door, and when I was living in the French Quarter with Kirby the Snake Man, I mean, I don't even want actually, he had a pet skunk named Crank. Because I joined the carnival, I know that's another whole story. Those are amends I didn't know how to make. But my father saw me, knocked at the door. Skunk Man was there with a snake wrapped around his arm. I had a black eye. I was dressed in my dancing clothes from the night before on Bourbon Street. And the dog was the only one wagging its tail, believe me. And my father knocked at the door and saw all of that and turned and stood by the side. And it was a tar paper roof apartment above a biker bar called the Mousetrap. And that's where his little girl that played the accordion, I know it wasn't cool then, still not cool now, but I risked it for my dad. I risked it because I wanted that nudge as I was going down Lisbon, Iowa on the, some sort of a hayride where we're all playing, beer barrel polka or, something. And this band is coming around the corner, and the boys from last night are going, "Oh my God, that's that fun girl from what? Well, she's playing the accordion and sitting on a hay wagon." And then we go around the corner, and I'd see my dad, because that's why I risked it. I wanted that special nudge he would nudge his buddy and go, "That's my girl," and that was all gone because of alcoholism. Nobody in my family that I know was alcoholic. Nobody that. At that point, I was it. There was nobody talking about alcoholism in the 70s in Iowa. Nobody. And so they didn't know what was wrong with their daughter. If she could just calm down, maybe that organic farm in northern Wisconsin will work for her. That guy is nice. I didn't like him. He said, "Let me take care of you in a farm." No, you work. He didn't take care of me. I met him in a bar and he lied to me. But I stayed for about a year because I was growing my Maui Wowie, and that's what got me in trouble. And another time, my dad had to come and see me in a situation in Bogalusa, Louisiana, because I was with the carnival, and I wasn't very nice. You couldn't be nice and work at the carnival back then, anyway. I don't know. And they had to learn to talk. They speak Siazarni, and it was a whole thing, and they punked me all the time, and now I'm alone. I have a dog, but the rest of it's alone. I'm drinking tequila. And I would mace people. I had mace in one boot because I hitchhike. And, so I would mace people when they wanted their teddy bears. Even though they won them, they always had a shooting gallery, and they would win them. And I wouldn't feel like giving them teddy bears. So I would shoot the mace in the air. And then the people would fight, and then we would get closed down, and the owner of the show would be upset. So about 2 stops into Louisiana, where he was going to winter for the season, he said, "Get that little girl from Wisconsin. She's trouble. I'm going to call the people I know in Bogalusa, Louisiana. I'm going to have them come in because I know she's got something in that room that they're going to want, and they're going to press charges." And that's what happened. I ended up in jail in Bogalusa, Louisiana, where the roaches take your shoes across the floor at night if they want them. And I had DTs. So my dad had heard about this from my brother-in-law. I didn't call my dad. My dad and I weren't speaking. We weren't eye to eye for about 8 years. 8 years. I would go home once in a while. My mother would say, "You know what? You can stay here because I know you're tired. You don't have a gallbladder anymore. You have pancreatitis. You're sick. But please stay out of your father's way because you break his heart." I'm going, "Thanks, Mom." Okay, I'm the thing that lives upstairs. And that's kind of what I was. And then I would find an idea and I would leave again because I could not get comfortable in my own skin. Alcohol was working, but what is it? It's like losing all your highs and lows. Ain't it funny how the feeling goes away? I think that's from Desperado, the song. I was a desperado. The feeling was going away. And there I was in this horrible jail, and they handcuffed me and took me somewhere, and I thought, this is it. Some people disappear and never come back from this place. But they took me to a building, threw me in, and I looked around, and they were judges. There's a judge and I guess a bail bondsman and a lawyer. My dad had hired them, but I didn't know. I looked to my left, and there's my father from Iowa sitting in a chair with his checkbook out. And I slid to the floor, and I felt like a grease spot in the bottom of your shoe. And we didn't talk. And I didn't say, "God, I'm so tired, Dad. Can't I go home and start over?" But you know what? It wouldn't have made a difference at all because I didn't know what was wrong with me, because I just drank. I drank. And there was no way drinking was going to be my running buddy after I got out of jail and found the French Quarter and the crazy people. I'm so glad Tom talked about crazy people. Boy, he's helping me a lot with a lot of things, I got to tell you, because I do pause. And then I forget to pray, and then I proceed sometimes. So I have to pause and count. I guess I get 48 beats. That's a lot, because I just want to pray and proceed. And, you learn a lot about yourself when you get a reaction to something, whether I'm standing in a room, in the car, whether it's judgment, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's grief, whether it's I'm not enough, whether it's why don't they understand me, where's my path. I mean, I can go into all of that in about 30 seconds, and when I'm alone in the car. And then the phone rings and I get to hear from somebody I sponsor, which is a joy. I'm so grateful for people I sponsor. I am so grateful they have kept me in the middle. I am so grateful I get to walk shoulder to shoulder through all the pains and the grief and the sadness and the joy and the victories of life with them. And many of them have been here with me this weekend, and the ripples continue. I get to see the babies and the grandbabies and from sea to shining sea. It has nothing to do with me other than I pick up the phone, answer the phone, I share my experience, strength, and hope. And I show up when I'm asked to. And that's what I do. But I couldn't do any of that. So that was it. My mother didn't know where I was. I left the French Quarter, and I ended up eventually in Southern California trying to go to Hawaii. And my mother didn't know sometimes for maybe months where her daughter was, what state she was in. Where is she? Is she working at that bar down in the French Quarter? I'm going to send her Valentine gift, because she always did. My mom always was in my corner. Out of all the children, my mom was always in my corner. We had a very close bond. And I remember when that Valentine gift, and I was in the French Quarter, it got to be about 2 bars later, maybe a month later, because I move on fast sometimes. I called home. And that's what she had to do, wait for me to get her Valentine gift. It was a pretty sweater, I remember. And she knew I'd call home. So that's how she communicated with her daughter. And I'm a mom today. I can't even imagine my son thinking of joining a carnival. I'd say, oh, no, you don't. I'd be right there. So that was 1975. I am in Barney's Beanery in West Hollywood, trying to get to Hawaii. And what happens is, I see the big book on the bar in Alcoholics Anonymous. It says Alcoholics Anonymous, next to this girl who's kind of passed out. And they're signing her court card, and it's going down the bar, and they're all laughing, and people are writing Mickey Mouse and things like that. And I don't know what they're doing because, she was always nice to me. And I thought, why are they picking on her? She, gave me earrings, bought me booze, let me sleep on her floor. And the bartender took her keys, woke her up, and said, the cab's here is taking you to A&A. So she got up with the big book, and she kind of fell out the door into the cab, and we took our drinks, and went, good for you, Chris, go to A&A. And she was going to be my Eskimo to you on August 20th, 1975, after I had been through that situation. And from that point to when I ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks, and nobody ran up to me and said anything like, well, you've got a deadly disease, and nobody even said, look what you've been through. Do you want to talk? They said, here's your detective. And so I was out of it when I came to you. That's what I can say. A guy drove out, picked me up. I didn't really know who he was, but he was a friend from Barney's, the bar. And he said I could sleep on his couch because he knew I had nowhere to go. And they caught these people, so I had to go back to a court case. And I am concussioned, boozed out. They gave me a lot of morphine until I wrote on my chart, addictive personality, because I thought, why are they not giving it to me anymore? But they got that, and then when I got out of the hospital, I was just drinking, and through the wires on the face where the tooth had been kicked out with a straw, cheap wine. And that was the day that he said, you have to leave me, you're depressing me. Nowhere to go. Clancy says no friendly direction, and that was the day I came to you, and I didn't know it was going to be my day of grace. All I knew was I had nowhere to go, and I called that girl's phone number. I did not even realize that she was the one that had gone to Alcoholics Anonymous, but he was dating her. And there it was, her phone number, sitting at that little table I sat with above the Duck Pond Liquor Store in West L.A. Little table. There was a phone book, and her phone number. And I'm there like, I can't talk anyway, but I thought maybe she'll be nice to me and let me sleep on her floor again. And she said, Sharon, I can't help you. Call Suzanne. I didn't know she knew I belonged in Alcoholics Anonymous. She was drinking that day, but she was going to 12-step me. I don't know. I'm calling a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm looking for a bed. I'm looking for a floor. So I called Suzanne because I thought, why is she not being nice to me? And I was afraid. I had first called my mom that morning. That morning I called my mom. She said, Sharon, we can't help you anymore. Go to the Salvation Army. $20, you'd have another speaker. See, it was all working towards me. It's like I had to lay down every single weapon I had because there certainly weren't very many left in my life. And I was just looking for some sort of comfort. And I ended up calling Suzanne. She said, put your drink down, put your joint, sit on the steps. She knew the liquor store. And she knew, see, this is how I taught. I was 3 months with the Wired Jaw in AA. I had to learn to listen when I came to you. Because nobody asked me to read the 12 traditions, believe me. And that was the way it started. That was the way it started. And this car picked me up, put me in the back, put me near this church. I'm at a church. He's talking about the mothership. I thought, oh, good, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And then somebody puts a big book down in front of me. And then my life began with you. All I can tell you, I was so tired. I was so tired. And you took care of me until, well, for a couple of months, really. You took care of me. You didn't know where I was going to sleep. You didn't know what I was going to do. You didn't know I had to go to court. You didn't know I had no car. But you were kind to me. And you found out. A man said to me, take your backpack off, kid, and stay with us a while. You look tired. And I thought, wow, how does he know I'm tired? And I detoxed with here. I didn't smell like Tiffany perfume. I hadn't bathed in a long time. And I detoxed out of my pores with you. And people would go, oh, I smell alcohol. Must be a newcomer here. And I thought, what are they talking about? Where am I? And you took me to the liquor store, waited for the lights to go off, sent me upstairs, and the next day they said, don't drink and use, we'll pick you up in the morning, and they got me a place to stay. And I guess they had gotten me another place to stay for a week and another place to stay for a week, so I slept on floors with women that were all in their first year, I guess learning how to work with a newcomer, who didn't talk, who didn't eat. I was pretty easy, really. Just give me a blanket and take me to a meeting and put me in front of the fish tank because I can watch the fish. I can't focus on what you're saying. I don't know what you're reading. I have no idea, but I was so tired. I stayed with you. I had no more weapons, no more. And I didn't know that I had surrendered to a brand new way of life that was going to transform so many things around me, so many things that was going to give me hope and joy. I had no idea I was going to get to go back and make amends to so many people. I had no idea that we were going to get to that point. I didn't even know what these steps meant. I had no idea. I couldn't even read. I finally got a sponsor. She moved me up to her couch, so I had a couch. But there was one night, and this is, I think it's important for me to talk about my first 2 steps, because if I hadn't surrendered to being powerless over alcohol, I wouldn't be here. If I hadn't surrendered to that I'm an alcoholic, that I can't drink normally. I don't want to drink normally. I think Billy said he couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't live it anymore. I couldn't live like I was living anymore. I had taken everything in my life that was good, and I had thrown it out the back of the, wherever I was hitchhiking to or whatever I was doing, and leave it by the side of the road. Goodbye. I had my book, Be Here Now, by Baba Ram Dass, No More Dog, No More Boyfriend, and some dirty clothes and an empty spirit and a beaten-up body. And how can transformation take place? These beautiful spiritual principles. How can it take place with somebody like me? I just was trying to survive. And my sponsor, one night they took me to the place I was supposed to go, but I was off schedule, I guess. So that place I wasn't at my sponsor's couch yet because I didn't have a sponsor yet. It was like 31 days sober. I raised my hand. I went, oh, how did that happen? I'm not 31 days sober. I'm never 31 days sober. Not even in jail was I 31 days sober. And I had that feeling of joy, I guess, go down my back like, oh my God, I'm 31 days sober. It was so new to even think that. And to have that feeling like something is bigger here. Bigger. I finally got out of the brokenness enough to feel what you were all telling me or just showing me, and just your kindness being all around me. You were infusing me with the joy of being sober, and I didn't have any of that yet, but for a moment I had something. And so Susie and Chuck were taking me to this place that I told them I was staying because I was off. The girl that I was supposed to stay with said no, I was supposed to be here, but it was tomorrow night. So I went to a place that I knew was an after-hours place in West Hollywood, and that's where they dropped me off. And when she saw me walking in that back garage and what was going on, Susie said to Chuck, she's not going to make it. And I didn't know if I was going to make it that night either, but I laid in that cot, because there was a cot, and I hung on to the cot. And I said, I'm either going to get up, or I'm going to lay here, and I'm going to have 32 days tomorrow. And I laid there, and I hung on, and I had 32 days when I came to. I found a power greater than me that night. And I surrendered that. I was an alcoholic, and I probably can't drink. I didn't think forever. It's a day at a time. They kept stressing, so that's good. So there I was. And then I started sponsored, moved me to a couch, made me pray, did the third step. She hugged me so tight I thought I must be gay. That was my first third step. I don't know. I loved her. And she said, let's don't make any major decisions. I'm still wired up. I can't. So everybody's telling me their secrets. And I'm going to talk one day. You guys don't tell me any more secrets. But you were so kind to me, and the winks from God were all over the room. The winks from God were everywhere. The winks from God were, when I feel like I couldn't, I'm trying to shove something in my mouth and I can't eat, and my mother sent me a blender so I could eat through a straw, and I'm making a mess at the coffee shop, and somebody looked across the table. I thought they would say, this girl's a pig from Iowa. Can somebody please handle her? Because she's hopeless. That's the way I felt about me. How are these spiritual principles going to get me to a point where from the tip of my head to the tip of my toes, I want to love God. I want to love God. I want to love you. I want to love this beautiful fellowship we have. I want to sit next to transformation. I want to have some transformation. I want to keep marching. How is that going to happen from this person who can't even drink a cup of coffee without making a mess? And that girl looked at me, was going to take me home. I thought she was going to say that. And she said nothing. She put a napkin on the side of my face where everything was dripping. She put it on the puddle on the table, went back to her conversation, but she gave me a wink. I remember that wink. It said, you're going to make it, kid. Your kindness. If you would have been kind to me, I would have been right out the door. So then we start. I do my first step. I don't want to do my fourth step. I can't remember anything. I sit down. I panic. I can't write. Oh my God, I had to have this resume to try to go get a waitress job after they took all this stuff off. And I said, I'm a bartender. And they said they didn't care. Goes through some food. And so I had this resume with all the places in the French Quarter I worked, the Carnival, and it was I thought I did a great job. I mean, the guy ordered lunch. He called his friend in. He said, you got to see this. I didn't know what he was talking about. So, of course, they didn't hire me, but he had fun, and so my sponsor and I filled in the holes, and she said, you got to start your inventory now, and I just because you've been praying, thank you for all you've given me, thank you for all you've taken away from me, thank you for all you've left me. Every night on my knees, she made me do that. Thank you for all you've given me, thank you for all you've taken away from me, thank you for all you've left me. I still say that prayer today. So I couldn't start. I got a $24 a week room. I got a car. I didn't have insurance. They make you do things as you're getting more sober, become more responsible, because they want you to be able to give this back. And so I had to surrender. I had to give it up. I had to accept where I was and start where I was, which was pretty far back. And I was a smart girl. My sister was a Mensa. I was never as good as her. Full ride to Barnard College. She had a master's at NYU. And she's the one that would never accept my amends. Never accept my amends. And you know why? Because 3 years ago, after her husband passed away, lots of money, 81 countries, full class, top of the line, everything, she became a hoarder alcoholic. She couldn't get near anything I was trying to say to her. She couldn't get near. No, that's okay, honey. That's okay, honey. And now she's wet brain, part of it. The other part is from brain bleeds and falling till we found her. And even the recovery place we got her in back in Pennsylvania gave us our money back. Didn't want anything to do with it. And she's being well taken care of in Madison, Wisconsin, in a beautiful unit where she's locked in. She's locked in. She doesn't really know it. And my beautiful sister called me the other day to ask for our mom and dad's phone number. They've been both gone for a while. And then she'll call at Mother's Day and say, I need Mom's address. I have to send her a card. Is my husband dead? You never know. And when all that happened, because of amends, because of walking with you, my family called me. What can we do? And we all tried, but she didn't at all relate to anything in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when she heard me speak last year in Wisconsin at the Dells, there was a couple of Madison people here. She, on the way home, my sister-in-law said, well, what'd you think of Sharon's talk? She said, well, my mother didn't tell us how much trouble she was in. And that's how sweet she is, but she's lost her, everything that she had, everything that, all the memories are all mixed up. And that's my sister who it never made sense why she would never accept my amends, because she didn't want to know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, nothing. But she hid it, and he hid it. He hid her. He shielded her. When he went, then it went crazy for her. So you never know what you're going to be to your family, too. No idea. My, wow. I was going to talk about her. She loops around. She'll call me 9 times in one day. Now she's got Pete's phone number. She'll call him 9 times in one day. It's just like, where am I? What am I doing? When are you coming? When are we going to New York? And, or she's sweet as pie. And she tried to send me something in the mail, but she didn't have the city. So it went back to my brother, and my brother sent it. He said she tried. She thinks she's reading the New York Times and doing the crosswords, and that's okay. She's happy and taken care of. But she didn't get the joy of coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and having some sort of transformation from the place that she's in because of the part that will never come back. So we are the lucky ones. So I couldn't live like that anymore, and here I am doing my 4th step. I finally panicked, and I just wrote through the panic. Pat Yo had 8 less days than me. I had 8 more days than her, and she came in to AA, and you guys loved her more than me because she could talk, and she cried, and she dressed nice, and she smelled nice, and I was like, I couldn't talk, but I could growl. And there she was I had the second-rate people working with newcomers. I had newcomers working with me, and she had all the old-timers, and she'd done her inventory, she did her 5th step, she was already working on amends, and they would let me know that. So I thought, I finally did it, and we finally did the 5th, and then we went through the defects, and then we burned my inventory. Don't do that. She had me burn my inventory. I was like, oh my God, all those names are on there. So then I had to recreate my list. We made a list of all persons we had harmed. And so she went and crossed half of them off. And it was, the joy of it is, and Pat and I still take the same, we say take our cakes the same August 20th, 28th for her. But, I have a little more time than her, so she'll get it. But we joke about it. I made my list, and she crossed a lot of it off. And we started with, she said, okay, you can go home now. You can go home and make your amends to your mom and dad. Go to Iowa. What? I'm not ready for that. I'm barely able to wash the cups and the ashtrays, all in the same, sink, or the ashes and cups. What do I do? Somebody walked up behind me and said, just wash. Okay, I'll just wash. I had to have very explicit direction my first year. So I did get in a plane, and I did go home, and my mom and I were great, and my sister, my younger sister, and my brother, and, it's a lifetime thing, because my father, when we were having a dinner after we buried him, this was a long time later, my sister and my brother talked about coming to New Orleans with my family and seeing the skunk guy, my black guy, the snake, and all of that, and I thought, were you there? Yeah, they were there. My younger brother said, I wanted to punch that guy, but he was bigger than me. And My sister said he was stupid. We went out to get sandwiches, and he took me to some girly show, and I just left. I thought, oh, my God, the things we don't remember, the blackouts, the things we don't know, I think I'll be making amends for the rest of my life to society, doing my best. And that was fine, but my dad, oh, my goodness, my dad, we had written something out. I had memorized it. It was like 5 lines. And we're on there 10 days. We're putting my bags back in the car to go back to LA, and I'm thinking that sponsor will kill me and put me on the next plane. And she would have, because she intimidated me. She was ahead of me. She was faster than me. She shared with me at my 5th step. She was sicker than me. It was like she saw me one day and she said, "You're going to run. Hang on to the seat." So I hung onto the seat for like 2 days. She kind of scared me a little bit. Long nails, laughed like a duck, quack, quack, quack. She was a little Janet Newcomb. I had her for 5 years. She's not sober now. But she would have done that. But I said to my dad, "I got to talk to you, Dad, if it's okay." And there was no sitting around looking eye to eye on those 10 days I was there. They were still riding in another car if we went somewhere. I wasn't, sitting there by my dad going, "Hi, can I be Daddy's little girl again?" There was a lot of pain between me and my dad, and you could cut it with a knife. Because I love my dad, my dad loved me. It was just confusing to him. What happened to her? Alcoholics Anonymous, And I would call home at the holidays because I couldn't make it at Grandma's house when they're all there. And my brother told me, and I didn't know my aunts and uncles even cared or knew about me. And they would all gather around when I would call Grandma's house on Thanksgiving and talk to my mom. And then my mom would hang up the phone and they would say, "How's she doing? How's she doing?" And my mom would whisper to everybody, "She said AA." Because she knew it was anonymous. That was all she knew about Alcoholics Anonymous. That's it. So they were going to learn as I came home, and I was I wasn't the prodigal son, believe me. I was just somebody who was coming home, and let's hope she's, going to act right. And I would go off to a meeting. We had drive-in in the wintertime. We had those pay phones. You could drive up and roll down your window when it was cold and put the phone in and call my sponsor and then get to a meeting and then get back and wash some dishes and be of service. And I said to my dad what I had to say as we were getting ready to go to the airport that one year when I was 1 year. And he said, "I just always wanted you to be happy." No hug, no burning bush, just that. So we got in the car and went to the airport, and she said, "Good, it's a good start." But the years go on. My dad walked me down the aisle, Boy Meets Girl on AA campus, and we were eye to eye. Because I consistently was part of the family. Whether I showed up, or I sent something, or I remembered your birthday, or I was accountable. And then at 5 years, I got another sponsor, and I got a better job, and I did get a car insurance and license all in the same name, and I got to drive. And so she said to me, I don't know about, your dad and maybe all of your story, but I know that he had a lot of things he had to pay for. So why don't you call him and ask him how much money you owe him? And I didn't know my dad was ready for me because you took him at the wedding. We went to the Pacific group and you welcomed him, and then you took him to the literature table. And my dad read it. He ran a calculator tape. He's a businessman. He was ready to go when I called. And my mother told me years later, not when my dad's alive, because, see, I'm defiant. If she tells me, I'll go, "He doesn't need it. Why should I even bother?" But I was following direction, and my mother didn't say a thing. My dad just told me how much it was. I called my sponsor. She said, "Okay, make payment arrangements, and don't be late with your payment if you accept it, because Bill and Bob are watching." Bill and Bob are watching? What? They had to trick me into doing things. And so I was making these amends, and she said, "Are you willing to go, basically to any lengths and to heal this relationship with your dad?" And, well, I guess so. I'm in a corner. I can't get out without saying yes to my sponsor, so okay. She said, "I want you to write a note about your life and put it in that. Don't send the cold, hard cash alone," is what she said. All right, I'll write a note. And she always checked up on me. Was it late? Did you write a note? Did you write a letter? Did you write a note? She checked up on me for a long time, Jimmy did. And so for 4 years and 10 months, my dad got a check and a note on time. I remembered Christmas. I remembered his birthday. I remembered calling. I would go home. I would ride with him in the car. Things were getting better. And, checking a note, 4 years and 10 months. And my dad called me the day after Christmas and said, "Merry Christmas, daughter. I don't want your money anymore. It's done. But don't stop sending me your notes." And the good news about that is my dad got redemption. My dad got redeemed. It's about forgiveness is forgiving. I was giving to my dad consistency. And he forgave me as I was giving him the best I could give him, which was a check and a note, a phone call. He would be on the phone with me instead of handing it to my mom. And then we were eye to eye, and we were having a root beer. And my legs were swinging like a little 6-year-old girl, if you would have looked. Just a root beer. Dad and her daughter having a chat one evening at A&W. It was slow, but it was consistent. And my dad was killed in 1999, and that's when, Clancy was my sponsor. He became my sponsor when my sponsor smoked pot. I got her, picked her up at the airport. She got off a plane from Paris. She said, "I have 21 days, not 21 years. And I asked this beautiful man if he'd sponsor me. And I didn't like him, and he didn't like me, and I'm sobbing. And, the first time I ever saw Clancy, I was with that crazy girl, Janet, with the nails that the first one that really pushed me through the steps, thank God, because she was intimidating. And I was sitting at the meeting. I was maybe 2 weeks sober. And she said to Clancy, she tapped on his shoulder at Ohio Street, "Hey, do you want to meet my newcomer?" And he said, "Sure." And he turned on and he went, "Ooh," because I didn't look very good. So I carried that resentment for a long time. I would look at him and he wasn't looking. And I'd go, we can hang on to things. It's crazy. And he just, does a lot in life. And he was I was in his group, but, and I used to make cards, Marilyn. I used to make cards at the yard because they wouldn't let me play volleyball with my wires and things on my face. So I wasn't as clever as she was. I'd just make a flower and "Happy Birthday, Fred," or whoever you are, and put it in there. Nobody ever read it, but that's good. I tried to be a part of, in spite of myself, because I had nowhere to go. And you were kind to me, and you helped me. And that night that I laid in that cot with 31 days and I didn't drink, that spiritual awakening stayed with me long enough to get me through. The carnival. Now, what do I do with that? I maced kids. I took their teddy bears. I stole things. I'd get to cheap motel, whatever I wanted, I'd take. We'd go down the alley and find TVs. And, the rest of my life I'll be making amends. And I had this beautiful boy, and he was 5 when he got kicked out of kindergarten, with a rap sheet because he was taking other kids with him on these adventures. And so I called Clancy, and I'm crying. I said, "He got kicked out of kindergarten. I'm losing. My husband left me for the newcomer. There's nothing I could do. My sponsor smoked pot. Poor me. And he just listened for a while, and he said, "Take him to Sister Sheila." And Sister Sheila is a nun I sponsor. Yeah, I know. That's a stretch, right? I sponsored her for over 42 years now. And she's helped me heal in so many ways that I didn't think were there. And she's helped me move along in ways where I get stuck, and I help her. And it's a beautiful relationship, and there's God in all of it. There's God, because she brings God in all the time. My sweetheart Pete brings God in the table. Every time we have a meal, we have to say a prayer. Brings God in the car, brings God in our relationship. I need people who bring God in their life. I forget sometimes. I need to hang out with the winners. And I need to hang out with people that remind me of what the spiritual principle is, the next thing. It's usually to pause and pray. It's usually to look around me and be grateful for what I have. So this carnival, I took Wesley to Sister Sheila, and she was principal of a school. And so he actually did very well there because they understood his creativity, and he's not an alcoholic. He's doing very well in his life. It's amazing that he found his passion for what he wanted to do, and we supported it. I supported it. We supported it. And that's what he's doing in life, is what he wanted to do. I mean, he had his little bumps in the road, yes. And we've had our bumps in the road, yes. But he's a very young, he's a young man that has a lot of gratitude and a lot of calm. I don't know where he got that, but he is calm. I love it. So he went to school there for 8 years. Well, from first grade, kindergarten through 8th grade. And at the end of 8th grade, I knew that, we're moving on. But guess what they have? They have a school carnival every year, and they needed volunteers. So I raised my hand. I worked the gallery. I worked the ticket booth. I worked the teddy bears. I bought ride tickets for all his friends. And when he was in 8th grade, they were all way taller than me. And they were 8th grade graduating that year. And it was my last year of being at that school, working that carnival. And having all those attorneys, I worked for write checks, I have them writing checks. And I knew it was done. I knew it was done. When I'm in Arkansas and Louisiana, I always ask if you're a young little boy and you had a mean girl at the teddy bear store, and she didn't give you one because, I had a shooting gallery, and I would just pop them up and say, no, you didn't, you didn't do this, go away, mace. Because I'm drinking tequila, I'm not a nice person. But I do say, if you had a mean lady at the carnival not give you your teddy bear, and you actually shot down 3 targets with the little BB gun, I'll come buy you one. Come find me. But nobody has yet. But I don't know, it still could happen. But my son got an award for being the highest fund, the fundraiser. I mean, my son and I had problems. Clancy said, go have Legoland with him. Go play Legos with him. Don't get off the phone. Quit, working your steps. Quit going to meetings. Take your son and go do what he wants to do. We have to have a lot of playtime. Somebody else talked about playtime. And I had to have playtime with my son. And he got this award for being the highest fundraiser ever in the school history. And he's accepting it at this graduation, and he said, it's not for me, it's for my mom. And he called me up and gave it to me, and I really couldn't speak, I just thanked him, But that was a beautiful ending, because his dad, that's another story. His dad married the newcomer in the room. They, left me with this baby, and I didn't know what to do, and Clancy wouldn't let me misbehave. I was going to have to make bigger amends by throwing hot coffee on him. I was on my way, and he said, you'll walk through it with dignity and grace. He stopped me. I was in the middle of you guys, and you're not going to let me do something that's going to harm maybe my child and my relationships with many people, and I'm going to hurt them. But he said, you'll walk through it with dignity and grace so you can be an example to others. And he wouldn't let me talk badly about her to my son, because that is the mother of his half-brother. I want to talk bad about his dad, and he said, you can't, he just said, you can't talk bad about her, so I didn't. And we're riding in the car one day, and he's marrying number 3, his father. And my son just looked up at me and said, I don't know, maybe he was about 6. My dad's marrying a fool. So, out of the mouths of babes, you never know, but... So I didn't. I went to their parties. I did whatever. I wasn't very nice, but I didn't say anything bad. And after he left her, and I went to make amends to her for a couple of things that I had gossiped about, hurt her in that way, not to my son, but other people. She said, Sharon, I knew I could walk through it with dignity and grace because I watched you. So you never know what your example means to somebody. So by making the amends, the 2 of us were best friends. We raised those kids together in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I wouldn't have done that. I would not have done that. My New Orleans people, they didn't believe I was sober. I went back to the International Convention, 1980, almost 5 years sober. Nobody recognized me. They just couldn't believe it was me. I had my old roommate who showed the blues saloon. We went to listen to some music, and she said, who's this girl standing in front of me? And I was her old roommate. She went, what? And the word out in the street was, you should see what that A&A has done with Mama Cher. She looks great. That was my example. I tried to 12-step my other good friend, Robin, and she passed out in the bed with a big book. I wish I would have had a cell phone then. I would have taken a picture of her. And 8 years later, Robin got sober. 8 years and 2 months later, Denny got sober. So Robin and Denny and I met in Oklahoma, and we were able to sit at that Canyon conference in the rain. Nobody was outside playing volleyball. We sat in a cabin with Ann I's daughter, Tracy, who was like, new and like a little rabbit in the room, listening to all of us talk about our stories and people that were dead and how much our gods, we talked about our gods with each other. We were the drunkest of the drunk in the French Quarter, the survivors. And Denny went back to law school. She sold the bar and then passed the bar in Louisiana when she got sober, and she got me in on a general pardon in the state of Louisiana. So just by trying to help out some old drunk friends and trying to be an example of Alcoholics Anonymous and find out if there's anything I can do to try to help them, I got pardoned by the state of Louisiana because of my friend, who we should have all died. So kindness, example of Alcoholics Anonymous, sometimes it's just a smile, it's a handshake, and sometimes it's taking somebody home, sometimes it's being inconvenienced, yes. And the transformation happens. I tried to pay back one of my guys, I stole a lot of money from his bar, a lot of money at a Dixieland bar, and he wouldn't have it, but he kept following me around all weekend in New Orleans at that International. And finally I said, "Why are you here?" He said, "I can't believe you're not drinking." And I thought you'd be drinking. I had to follow you around because I can't believe you're not drinking. And he wouldn't let me give him any money. So I sent everybody in my group or anybody I knew that were going to New Orleans, because he said, "You just come back and tell me you're still with it." Still sober. And so he would, he would get meet all of you, and you would sit in the bar and go, "Hey, Cher's still sober and she's still with it. So she told me to come in, you buy me a Coke." And he met a lot of you, because that was my way of making amends. He didn't want anything but to know I was still with it. And it was interesting. It's been interesting to go back and she crossed off a lot of people on the list. There's a lady that's come up recently. I was in a sorority. I know, it was hard to imagine, but I worried her. She was my house mom, and she wrote letters to me. She was worried about me. People were always writing me letters. "I'm so worried about you. You have so much potential. What's going to happen to you?" And I've recently found her number, but I've left her a message and nothing, so we'll see. But the transformation's been there through all of it, all of my efforts, because I've had the principles. It says, in the beginning, it said, remember at the beginning, we made a commitment that we would go to any lengths for the victory over alcohol. And I remember my sponsor pointed that out when we started our amends. I said, "No, I didn't. I didn't say I would do that. No." And there's so many beautiful principles that we get to live by. And, the togetherness comes in, one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic in the connection. I've learned how to play. I buried my husband. I buried my father. I buried my mother. My father was killed, and Clancy was my sponsor then, and he was in Africa. And he was killed. The whole town was upset. And I wanted to do a final amend to my dad. I wanted to play him an accordion number at his wake. And I picked up my dad's accordion, and he was from Czechoslovakia, so it was buttons, both sides, beautiful mother of pearl, Heleganka accordion. And I played the piano accordion, so it's a whole different thing. And so I was trying to play Amazing Grace, and you have 8 notes when you pull this one and 4 more notes over here. So I'm like, Clancy's in Africa. I can't talk to anybody. I've got a girl I sponsor. I was in my mother's kitchen when my father was killed. I got off the plane and you were there. Thank you. Thank you, AA. And so I sat this girl. I did sponsor her. I don't sponsor her anymore, but maybe there's a reason, because her eyes were spinning. We sat in a cedar closet, and I got my dad's accordion, and I made her listen to me for 3 hours trying to play Amazing Grace. She's still sober. Oh, it's okay. But, so she finally said, I said, how is it? It's better. So we ended up going to the wake, and the wake is, it's raining like crazy. The whole town came out. This was a huge thing. It was on the news. I mean, and I was so broken. But I have that defiance, and they think I'm my sister. They don't know who I am. I'm not Nancy. I'm Sharon. But soon I'm getting this attitude. And I thought, I better call my sponsors. My dad's wake, and I'm making it about me, and I'm not going to be able to play this thing, and I don't know, and now and I get to the rectory, and I call him, he's at the mission, he's back, and he said, I'm so sorry this happened to you, Sharon. I'm so sorry I wasn't here to help you. But I'm here now, and I'm going, if you've got a baby on the other end of the phone or anybody, you got to kind of give them a moment, where are they? What's happening? Is it breaking up with the boyfriend or standing on a bridge? I mean, you just don't know. And so he kind of calmed me down, and he said, Sharon, you're at the rectory, right? You're in the church, right? You're at your dad's wake, right? Yeah. Well, I got the grace and the accordion. He said, okay. I think you said you're going to play an accordion number for your dad. Okay, that's good. I know it's going to be a great thing. The whole church is just going to not even have a dry eye. Look around. You're going to do a beautiful job of this final goodbye for your father. But there'll be a few people sobbing. Please look at them, because those are the musicians. Okay. So that's the way I am. I'll make my father's wake about me in an accordion number without direction, and when I'm in grief or I'm in pain. And Casey and I were together 24 years. We were married 5 at the Bellagio. I've taken his ashes all over the world. I bungee jumped in New Zealand. I jumped out of planes with Hilda on her birthday. Paris, Iceland, Scotland, Virginia, Florida, Wisconsin. I've taken him a lot of places, and I've documented it, and there's still a lot left. Still a lot of his ashes left, and that was 2011 when my husband passed away, and I held his hand on that last day, and I got resentful. It's his last day on the planet, and his best friend, who he was meditating with, a good friend of mine, I've known her for years, she comes up and whispers in my ear, and he leaned into me for hours because I wasn't going to get up. It was his last day. He leaned into me so much with his bones that I had bruises on my body the next day. And I had moments where I would walk by him, and he was sitting there after chemo treatments, and I would walk right by him, and I would complain about work, and he'd always say, Sharon, go keep the insurance. And it was like, I wanted to be more of a part of this. He said, you've walked by me 5 times and you haven't made eye contact yet. And I went, oh crap, he's got an expiration date and I can't even come home and look him in the eye and go, how are you? That hurt. That hurt. So I put the Tommy Voss on the door because that's check for welcome. And I touched it before I went in, so I would go in and say, hi, how are you? Take me out of me. I need reminders. I need people. I need to trip over something. I need to be told. I'm a very emotional person, obviously. And I sometimes can't see the forest for the trees. I can't. Or it's the other way around. I don't know. But I was there, and he was leaning on me, and this person that he meditated with when I was at work came up and whispered in my ear, he wants to be called a spiritual warrior. I didn't know that. She had that. And I felt, okay, I had to really dig deep. And just sit and hold him and love on him. And everybody left, all the people there, the guitar picker, everybody that was there. Father Terry gave him last rites. We had the Buddhist here with the Tibetan beads. We had a lot going on, and everybody left except me and the hospice nurse, and that was his last breath, was just with me and her. And it was 8:20. I said, what time is it? Oh, that's my sobriety date, August 20. And there were a lot of little moments, and there was a lot of that evil twin that came up after his memorial because she woke me up. A beautiful memorial, 500 people, golf course, bagpipes, people talking, a lot of love, a lot of laughter. The girls that I sponsored brought china and silver because he never ate on paper plates. He didn't like paper plates. And we had all kinds of cake, carrot cake, and all kinds of white chocolate. And my evil twin wakes me up the next morning after this beautiful day, and she says, why did you have people stand in the sun? Why didn't you play that video a little bit more before people left? And, I see so-and-so didn't share here. Boom, 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 taking it all away from me. That's where it comes from. It comes from my self-centered, I call her the evil twin. I got up, I made a tuna fish sandwich, I cut it end to end, I put it in a paper bag. I should have just written evil twin on it. I came out to the car, I put her in the car, I belted her in, I put the sandwich on, I drove to Playa del Rey and left her at a bus stop. I thought, that's it, I'm done with her. I'm done with this evil twin. I'm done with these thoughts of I'm not enough. It's not enough. She comes back. Now I make peanut butter and jelly because I don't want some homeless guy to find tuna fish and mayo, so I'm thoughtful. I'm going to end soon, but I want to let you know, in 2018 I had a hard time. My son had a fake marriage in France. That's a whole other thing. But he and I got through it together. We both had really rough years. And COVID hit in 2020. We were all on Zoom, and I met Pete. He met me. We met each other, and I didn't know I could fall in love again. I thought that was gone. I didn't know that there was more love waiting for me in the area of having a mate. And we've been 3.5 years. We've known each other. We had in COVID. You got to know each other. FaceTime dated for 7 months. 7 months. And he was working out a big dissertation, and he always made time for me. He sent me cards in the mail. What? Who does that? He just texted me, sent me cards in the mail. So it started, and then my dog liked him, so everything was a lot better after that when he showed up. And so we've had 2.5 years of living together of I'm learning so much more because I'm in a different space in my life. My son is grown up. I'm semi-retired. I'm looking to give more kindness to the world somehow. I don't know yet. But I have an adventure again with somebody I care about who likes to travel, who loves AA, works the best 10-step, and if I'm a smart-ass, God always stops me in a minute. I broke my right toe 2 weeks ago because I was being a little smart-ass. Some girl came up on his phone from China 10 years ago, right? And I'm going, well, who's that? Blah, 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 right? Because we have a lot of trust. And I was being a little smart-ass, and the phone just God went, whoo! It landed on my middle toe and broke it. It was like, okay, I can't get away with anything. I got it. But I also want to let you know that if I would not have made those amends to my father, because the ripples are huge. What we do, we throw a little Zen stone in the day in life. Just a little Zen stone. I go out into the world, I ask God to show me what He wants me to be and how He wants me to do. And if I remember, and I have my quiet time in the morning, and I love having somebody to meditate with. We don't always do it, but it works. And the dog passed away, but now we have the cat. And the feral cat is learning how to go lie down, really. Sit down here, behave. No, the cat's wagging its tail like a dog, sniffs my hand, so I'm fine for that. She likes to meditate with us. But because of the ripple effect of amends, Alcoholics Anonymous, everything that my father saw, my mother told me this after my dad died. She said, the town drunk was 12-step by your dad. Did you know that? I said, no. Yeah, I knew the town drunk because he would come borrow a bottle from my dad because it was liquor. Back in the days, you had to go to the state liquor store to get hard booze. And so every time John would come to the house, if my dad wasn't home and he'd borrow a bottle because my dad had a business and he had a bar, I'd take 2 bottles and tell my dad, John borrowed 2 bottles. So I liked this guy, John. He was pretty cool. So he came to my dad and he complained, and my dad said, John, I don't think it's Mary's fault. I don't think getting a divorce is what you need to do. He wanted to divorce his wife. I said, I think you're an alcoholic. You need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's helped my daughter. Maybe it'll help you. And the big book that my dad bought from you that had the circle and the calculator tape by his chair, probably buried 8 down books by now, was given to John. And I didn't know that. That was cool. And I thought, wow. I don't go there very often. I'm not going to see him, but I am at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in Thousand Oaks, one of those nights where it's raining and you don't want to go and you don't want to be with anybody, so you're not in the carpool lane and it takes you forever to get there. And I go, and they're just really calling my name as I'm walking in. It was that bad traffic, and I'm in a bad mood. But my mother had just told me about John. So I thought I'd talk about it that night, because it was on my heart. And I talked about John being 12-stepped by my dad and giving him the book. Okay, meeting's over. This girl comes up to me, and she said, "Can I talk to you?" And I said, "Sure." I thought, oh, another one to sponsor. Okay, let's see how we can fit this one in. But, I'm not prejudging. I'm just thinking, I kind and say, "Sure." And she comes up to me, and she said, "I think you're talking about my Uncle John. Do you recognize me?" And I said, "No." But she told me who she was, and I used to babysit her. I said, "Oh my God, I'm sorry about smoking the pot. More amends, more amends." I never drank while babysitting, but I smoked the pot. So she said to me, "I went home 2 years ago to a family reunion, and my Uncle John 12-stepped me, and I have 2 years. So you never know. The day I was going to blow up in the van and tell him all what I thought about him, because we were all in the car one day, and I was crying, and my dad said, "Are you okay?" And I was going to tell him that day. But I had done my meditation, and I heard the voice that said, I paused. I took a beat. The voice said, "Get out of the van." So I did. I got out of the van. I made amends to Iowa. I live a free woman today. I live in the freedom of Alcoholics Anonymous, knowing God loves me, God goes first, in the boat with you, shoulder to shoulder, hand to hand, we're all rowing together. When I was having a hard time, my girl said, "Lay down in the boat, we'll row for you." I said, "Hell no, I want to know where we're going." It's like, so sometimes, and before Clancy passed away, I said, "Clancy, that invisible boat you talk about, what's written on the oar?" And he just looked at me and he said, "Willingness." So I have been willing and practicing willingness for all these years, and I'm going to keep rowing with you. And if you're tired, I'll row for you. And if I'm tired, I know you'll row with me. So thank you for having me.